I would like to address again how much safer cities is important for the work of ICPC. I think that this has been told by different people, and within the UN system, but also in relationship to the governments. And I won't spend my 10 minutes here, but in this sense, I would like to go back to Sebastian's question. What's the relationship, what would be the relationship of this global network with safer cities and with UN Habitat? I think this is something that you will address tomorrow, but it's crucial for the partners around this table to be able to react to the idea of a global network, to have this clear. So what would be this relationship? I will talk to you a little bit about the work of ICPC to arrive on the network part of our work and how I think what we have learned from this network perspective and what I think are important questions for us to debate here. So as I told you, ICPC is an organization that was created almost 16 years ago. Today we have more than 50 members with very different profiles. So we have national governments, very different among themselves. So we have from Canada, France, Chile, Norway, represented by the Norwegian police, South Africa, represented by the South African police, El Salvador, Argentina, so there's a diversity of governments there. We also have cities such as Paris, Dakar, Lille, and we also have organizations. And we're talking about here about a diversity of organizations such as the Clean Foundation, which is a recent new member in Nigeria, but also EFUS, who is a very traditional and a non-member of ICPC, the Australian Institute of Criminology, and the Small Arms Service, just to give you a picture of the profile of our members. So the work, I would divide the work of ICPC, first of all, like we can say the first pillar of the work, it's technical support and technical assistance. So we have, for instance, a project in Peru to develop local crime prevention plans focused on women's safety and youth. Another example would be community policing, working with community policing in Guatemala, but also in Bogota we're now developing, in partnership with the World Bank, a toolkit to address public-private partnerships and how to improve that. But the reason ICPC does technical assistance is to build knowledge. I think this is the basic motivation behind that. Because ICPC is also a center of reference, is a center of knowledge. So we publish every 2 years an international report on community safety and prevention trends. We work in partnership both with Habitat and UNODC, producing some tools such as the Youth Source Guide, some of the UNODC UN handbooks, and also we do comparative studies such as the one we've done recently on gangs in 3 different countries. The reason ICPC tries to build this knowledge and be a reference center and a knowledge center is to be able to animate properly its network. So we're talking about having technical assistance that is capable of building knowledge that should be used to animate the network of members and partners. And the idea and the network is really the strength of ICPC, has been the strength of ICPC in this past 16 years. The idea of network can be divided in two separate dimensions. So the first one is to promote exchange among the members and partners. So as an example, I would give you, the Norwegian police has a very interesting project on restorative justice that South Africa is really interested in. So ICPC is the platform for this kind of exchange. The Montreal Police Services has gone to ICPC to Guinea to develop within some kind of training as well. France has access ICPC network of experts to build a seminar on evaluation of crime prevention strategies. So the center is it's a place, a platform to members to exchange based in the knowledge that we build. The other dimension of the network is the colloquiums and the meetings that we organize. We're going to have this year in South Africa our biennial colloquium, so I take the opportunity to invite you all. We organized a meeting on crime observatories last year in Montreal. We recently organized an international seminar on Aboriginal safety in Montreal last week. So from just a very quick review, so I can talk a little bit about some considerations that I find important for this discussion. From the practical point of view, we've been discussing some guidelines. ICPC is now has a new strategic plan for the next 5 years, and we have been discussing some guidelines that I think we can relate to the proposed network here. The first of them is that projects should be an opportunity to build knowledge, to generate knowledge. We're not talking about doing a project after another, but we're talking about opportunities to get to learn, to be able to build cases, in our case specifically. And I think what's interesting here is that we've been listening to very impressive experiences. We have some cases, but I think we need to sophisticate our way of framing them and presenting them in a way they're convincing enough. So, and I think we're in different levels here when it comes, for instance, to local safety. I think we're very well trained. We have a clear framework to that. When it comes to urban planning and building a case on how urban planning has improved safety, we're not there already, so we're getting there. So I think for us, this is a basic guideline. The other one is to explore the partnerships in many senses. So we've been discussing to have our internal seminar in the next EFOS conference. We've been discussing benefiting from the workshop that the OSI plans to organize to build towards our colloquium as well. So to explore the partnerships that are provided by our partner, the opportunities that are provided by our partners to also promote this exchange and build knowledge. The other guideline is that the network has to have a value on itself, and it has to be capable of self-animating it. I don't know if the English is correct now, but ICPC cannot be the only one animating the network. People around the network should be able to see that there is a value there, that they want to be engaged. Of course, it's our role to animate that, but also it's a role of the members of the network. And finally, the way we found to do that is that we have now to develop a working plan with every member, every ICPC member. Of course, this will vary according to the profile of the member, according to several things, but this is the plan that we have to have an active network of exchange. From a conceptual point of view, I think that the first thing that I want to address is the centrality of crime prevention for us. That's, and I'm not saying that we don't want to work with other areas, but I want to emphasize that crime prevention is what ICPC brings to the table. If we're talking about public health, if we're talking about education, if we're talking about urban planning, it's from a crime prevention perspective. This is the expertise of ICPC and our network, but crime prevention perceived as well-being, as quality of life. And to be able to consolidate this conception is a challenge in that sense. The second thing is to recognize that there is a field that is consolidated, a field on crime prevention that has tradition, that has history, and that has overall knowledge that was accumulated. And I'm saying this because of my third point here is that we need to recognize initiatives that have been working, or as we like to call also in ICPC, promising practices, but now also the ones that are not so mainstreamed. And I think that for me here the best example are the initiatives that are dealing with youth. I think that we spend a lot of time discussing what is their role, how it should work with them, how is the relationship, and they're doing things already. They're not waiting for us to define what's the role of youth, how we're going to address the voice of youth. They're doing amazing things. And I think we're losing some time and money not recognizing these initiatives and not bringing these initiatives in a formal way to our discussion as well. The other point is that, and Franz addressed this today, and we were discussing previously, it's we need to claim the prevention discourse and give meaning to it. I think that the idea of prevention is not the concept, but at least the word today is very much shared and spread. But what does that mean? So you have many mayors saying, okay, I'm going to increase lighting in my city. I'm going to work on urban planning. Why? how are these choices made, what's the strategy behind this, why does your city need lighting or closing bars or urban planning. So how are you formulating the explanation, the motivation for your policy? And this would allow us to address even delicate topics as, for instance, CCTV. So if we can talk why lighting is important, if we can formulate it well, we are also going to be able to say why CCTV may not work or when it's going to work. So I think it's we need to bring meaning to the prevention discourse that is now, as Frances very much shared. In this sense, I think we should be aware of new initiatives that are happening, especially, I think, critical context, coming from critical context. We have very interesting and creative experiences coming from Bogota and Medellin, cities that face very high homicide rates. We had Johannesburg developing an amazing strategy when it came to the World Cup. We had Brazil that made this very impressive, and France can say that, participatory process to debate a national crime prevention policy. So I think we have very creative experiences out there coming from critical contexts that we should also take into account. My final comment is that we have to treat safety and prevention from a positive perspective. Coming from an emerging country, I'm not sure where, we're emerging from where to where, but coming from a country with very high homicide rates, I can tell you there is no use to learn from the 10th time that Latin America is one of the most violent places in the world. It would be much more useful to read on a report, on a document, what Latin America can do to change that reality, what Latin America is doing. And I think we can repeat that from different countries. So we think we need, and this will change the way we will address prevention. It's not because we need to address crime and violence. It's because safety is a right. It's because we're entitled to be safe. We're entitled to live in non-violent environments. So I think also it's the outcome of ICPC exchange and network is also to build an idea of safety that addresses the promotion of safety, never to fight crime, but from a positive perspective.